Alrighty, so you guys know you get extra credit for attending SI. You both have your official name on Zoom, so that's fantastic. I will send that to Steve and you'll get your extra credit. Okay, so announcements. The first announcement that I want to talk to you guys about is SI now has a Canvas page. So all the material that we cover in SI, that means the slides, the codes, if we go through any activities, it's all going to be posted on this Canvas page along with the recordings. So it's no longer going to be on the regular Google Doc. I'll still probably put it on Discord, but your main source of SI materials will be here. So in order to see it, you have to click the link and then you'll have access to that Canvas page. And that looks like this. We go over to dashboard, it will just appear as a course. Again, you don't get a grade for SI. But when you go to modules, and I click student view so I can see what you guys see, you'll have all the material from previous weeks. Yeah, so that's about it with that. In addition, I wanted to let you guys know that Zybooks, I know that you got some weird grades. Steve and I talked about it after class and we figured out a temporary fix and a future permanent fix. So that should be getting fixed soon. So don't worry about that. Okay, next up, questions. Do you guys have any questions on your PAs, CAs, any of the programming challenges I sent you last week or anything in general?
Yeah, did Steve say that if we do the Zybooks, can we still get points for it or?
Yeah, you're gonna get points. He's gonna just regrade everything.
Okay, so we still have time to like do it again, right? Or
I'm pretty positive, yeah. I don't know
Okay.
exactly when he's gonna go in and fix it, but we talked about the correct way to get your grades accurately and also maybe how to do it automatically. So we don't have to go in and punch in everything manually. All right, James, you have a question on Zybooks. How do you change your username? Oh yeah, I remember you were asking that. That I am not 100% sure because I've never had to do that. Let's see. So if I open Zybooks, I know there's settings, but all that I've ever seen is password and user information like email. So about the username, did it come like previously assigned to you or is it something that you made? Yeah, that's a tricky one. I've never had to use a name that you made. You know what? I will research that a bit for you and I will send you a message on Canvas or Discord when I get that figured out. Does that sound good? It should be changeable. I don't see why it wouldn't be. So I will take a look at that for you later. Hey, Samantha. Yeah, so we are just covering questions. And if there are, hi. So yeah, the next thing we're going to talk about is we could do one of two exercises or both, whatever you want to do. We could A, update the quadratic roots calculator that we made to make it so it will in advance determine if the quadratic has one solution, two solutions, or no solutions. So that would be using some if statements. Or we could update our number guessing game from last week and we can change it to allow for when the user types in a number that's too big, it has the functionality to tell the user, hey, you're supposed to enter a number between 0 and 100. So at the very end of SI on Wednesday, we were discussing those logical operators. So we'll be putting those into practice. Do you have any preference on which of these two we do?
Can you guys hear me? I'm sorry, I was having some issues. I don't mind whichever one.
Okay. I think we'll do this one because I know James was here for this one and so were you. So I think more people are familiar with it. So just to review what we had last week, I'm going to, oh gosh, what did I call it? I'm hoping this is the right name. Okay, cool. So last week we wrote a code and it was this one right here. And what it did is we had a prompt to the user that would tell them to enter a number between 0 and 100. And the user would enter their number. And it comes back with a message depending on the input. And the goal of the program was to make it like a number guessing game. You had a mystery number, and then the user had to keep guessing. So we had it where if they entered a number too high, above the range, it still just said it's too high. So what we want to do here is make it so when they guess a number out of range, meaning below 0 or above 100, it prints another additional message that says, sorry, or just says, please guess in the specified range. So right now we have an if condition that says if the mystery number, which is our secret number here, is equal to the number that the user enters, we print that they won. If the mystery number is less than user number, we say that the user number is too high. And similarly, if the mystery number is greater than the user number, we say, sorry, that is too low. So we need to figure out how can we adjust these if statements to include the functionality that allows it to say, basically gets in the specified range when they're out of range. What do you guys think?
Another if statement?
We could do another if statement. I'm looking for logical operators this time. Do we want a quick review on logical operators real fast? Logical operators are the and, or, and not. So if we were to take a look at the slides, I think these are the ones from last week. The very end, we were talking about these when we had something that was false and something that was false with an or in the middle, it was false. When we had ands, both things had to be true. You guys remember these ones? Yes. All right, awesome. So we are going to use these logical operators to define a range. So right now, our range for this if statement right here, this else if, is from mystery num. Wait, what are we thinking? We're saying mystery num is less than user num. So what would be the range there? When is it going to say, sorry, that's too high?
When it's more than mystery num?
Yeah, so if we have a number line and mystery num is right here, this range is going to go all the way from mystery num to, I guess, technically infinity. But we don't want that. We want it to stop. We want this range to instead be from mystery number to 100. We need to define this range right here. So right now I'm saying while we're going to do this thing when the user num is greater than the mystery num, I need to add another condition here that will prevent it from being over 100. Okay, let's think about this just in plain English. We could say that our range, we want it to be when user num is greater than mystery number and user num is less than 100. Would that make sense? Just to put it in words, that's what we want to do.
So you had an and statement?
Yeah, there we go. We want to add an and statement. We're going to add an and we know when we have an and, both things on each side of the and have to be true for this to happen. So we know that we want mystery number, we want our user num to be greater than mystery number. What else do we want?
And be less than the mystery num, or no?
What
Less
else?
than the user number.
Less than, well, if we say that user num is greater than mystery num and less than mystery num, that can never be true. So we know that our condition, we want mystery num to be
100.
Yeah, there we go. We want user num to be less than 100. Perfect. So let's give it a shot. So I'm going to save and see if our logic works. So we're expecting that if we enter a number that is greater than 100, we should no longer see this output. Where before, when we entered 1,000, we did. So let's see, I'm going to enter 1,000 again. Sorry, that's too high. Wait a second. Oh, wait, less than 100. Mixed up the sign there. Sorry about that. So that should fix it. There we go. So using the and, we were able to do a compound expression here where we were able to define a range for, yeah, I do too. It's a problem. One thing that someone told me that kind of helped is, yep. So when you have, wait, where is it? When you have this one, it kind of almost looks like an L, and that is less than. So if you read it from left to right, you would say usernum is less than 100. That's one thing that sometimes helps me, but I often forget it. So it was a little side tangent. All right, so now we defined that range. How are we going to do it so if they enter a negative number, they get a different message than sorry, that's too low?
It would be the opposite sign.
Yeah, so we do usernum. Wait. User, gosh, is greater than, and what do we want it to be greater than? Do we want it to be greater than 100 or something else?
Mystery? No. 0?
Yeah, there we go. So now for this number line, we're saying that we have a number line here. The first condition is saying that usernum is going to be less than mystery. So if we have mystery right here, usernum is going to be this way. But then we have another condition here that's saying that usernum is going to be greater than 0. So we have another one. So we have this range right here from 0 to mystery. All right, so we're going to save and recompile. There we go. If we enter -5, let's see what we get. We get nothing. So that's expected because all of these conditions were false. We entered -5. It wasn't the mystery number. It wasn't in the range of mystery to 100. And it wasn't in the range from, gosh, what was this? Mystery to 0. Yeah. So now we want to have another informative message that tells them you are not in the range, basically. How do you think I could do that?
An else statement?
Perfect. So all of these conditions were previously false. So an else will kind of be like a catch-all. It will just say, okay, if everything else is false, then we're going to just end up executing this. So we'll do a cout. All right, sounds good to me. And we'll save it. And try it one more time. So I'll enter a random number here. We'll do -10. Please enter a number between 0 and 100. So that's good. It increased the functionality of our code. You guys have any questions on this so far? Oh, good. Awesome. So one thing that I do really quickly want to touch on is we say enter a number between 0 and 100. So when I read this, I think that 0 and 100 probably are included in the range. But when I enter 100, it says, please enter a number between 0 and 100. So we have a little bit of a logic error here. How do you think that we could fix this?
An equal sign.
Perfect. We want to say when usernum is greater than or equal to 0, or when usernum is less than or equal to 100. So we add that equality portion, and then when we run it, sorry, that is too high. That sounds great to me. So I think that this one, we achieved the desired output, unless you guys have any questions or anything you want to add. Oh, good. Awesome. So I think that this actually will help us flow into the next topic, because if you notice, every single time I wanted to rerun this program, or every single time I wanted to guess a new number, I had to recompile. Actually, no, I just had to re-execute the program. So if I got a message that said, sorry, that's too high, and if I wanted to play again, I would have to rerun the executable, and then I would have to guess another number. But wouldn't it be great if instead of rerunning this program every single time I wanted to guess another number, that it would just keep looping over and over and over again until you got the correct output? That sounds fantastic for the user and fantastic for me, because I don't have to rerun this every single time. So we are going to talk about repetition in programs next. Let me pull up the slides again. So the first form of repetition that I want to mention is a while loop. And a while loop is when in programming, you're going to loop while something is true. So an example of this is when you're in Zybooks. I guess you guys may have noticed that you can keep submitting an activity over and over and over again until you get it correct. This is an example of a while loop. You could say that while your answer is not correct, execute the following statements, try another answer, and once the condition is false, you got it correct, you're going to move on and do something else. So that's what a while loop conceptually is. It's going to keep repeating a certain statement while a certain condition is met. And the structure of a while loop in programming looks a little something like this. This is the basic one. So we always start with the keyword while. It tells the compiler, hey, this is the type of loop I want to do. It's a while loop. Then next thing that we say is the loop expression. And this is a logical expression, just like the ones that we use in an if statement. They have to result in either true or false. And depending on the value, true or false, depends on if the stuff inside the loop body is going to execute. So if it's true, we'll execute this. But the important thing to note, how this differs from an if statement, is it's going to repeat. So what happens in the flow of the program is it's going to check first, is this condition right here true? And if it is, we're going to execute anything that's between these two curly braces. Can be as many lines as you want. Then this is where it differs. Instead of just continuing on with the rest of the program, like an if statement would, what's going to happen is at the end curly brace, you're going to come all the way back up to the top of the while and reassess this condition again. And if it's true, if it's still true, you're going to execute everything inside. And then when you're done, you're going to come all the way back to the top, and then you're going to check the condition again. And this is going to go on and on and on and on and on until eventually that condition is at some point false. So that's your basic while loop structure. This is just a written explanation of all of that if you ever want to come back to the slides. And I guess one important thing to note is every single time we loop around in the while loop, that is called an iteration. So you might see that used in Zybooks a few times. Okay, so we're going to talk, let's see, possible. Yes, absolutely. You're saying like predetermine how many times it's going to loop ahead of time. Yes. Yes, definitely. So a while loop is generally used, this is a little bit further ahead, but a while loop is generally used when you don't know how many times you want something to loop. A lot of times this will depend on user input, and we'll see that a little later on. But there is definitely a way that you can write a loop so it loops a finite number of times that is predetermined before you write it. I mean, before you execute the program. And this type of loop is called a for loop, and we'll talk about those a little later on today. So you will definitely see that. So for now, we're going to look at this while loop right here. And in this while loop, this is the example that we saw before. I have set val1 assigned with 5 and val2 assigned with 2. So we're going to look at this loop and see how this program would run. And we're going to use these boxes to figure that out. So on iteration 0, I'm just calling iteration 0 kind of before we even enter the while loop. Val1 has the value of 5, and val2 has the value of 2. All right, so now we're our program. We're going down the list of all of our statements, and we see a while loop. So the first thing that we're going to do is we're going to check for this condition. Is val1 greater than val2? What do we think?
Yes.
Awesome. So what happens when val1 is greater than val2?
You add 2 to it.
Yeah, exactly. So since val1 is greater than val2, and this is our conditional statement, which depends on if the while loop is going to run or not, since it's true, we're going to go ahead and enter. So this statement says that we are going to add 2 to the value of val. So val2, we're going to add 2 to the value of val2. So val1 on this iteration stayed the same. We didn't change it. But val2, we increased its value by 2. So now it's 4. And that's the only statement in our loop. So we have reached the end of the loop, and we're going to go all the way back up to the top. So now we reassess the condition. Is val1 greater than val2?
Yes.
Yes, awesome. So now we're going to go into the loop since it's true, and we're going to add 2 to val2. So this becomes 6, and this stays at 5. So now we're going to go all the way back up to the top, and we're going to check the condition. True or false?
False.
Awesome. So the condition is now false. And when it's false, we jump from this curly brace all the way down to the next one and continue on with the rest of the program. So that is how the while loop flows. And I have this program as an executable somewhere. Let's see, get out of that. While example, perfect, there it is. And if we were to run this program, what did I call this? Okay. Oh, right. So the reason why I didn't get any output is I didn't put any cout statements. So what I want to do here is just cout just the value of each of them. There we go. So on our first iteration, val1 was 5, and then val2 increased to 4. And on our second iteration, val1 was 5 still, and val2 increased to 6. So that checks out with our little chart that we made. So do you have any questions on the basic flow of a while loop? All right. If that is all clear, we can move on to the next example that I want to talk about, which is something pretty important. And when we have a while loop, we actually have to make sure that the condition changes inside the while loop. So in our previous example that we just went over, we increased the value of val2 by 2 every single time we went through the while loop. And this made it so our loop had a stopping point. But if we forgot to increase or change the value of one of our variables in our conditional expression, we'd get something that's called an infinite loop. So if we look at this this loop I have here, we start off by initializing 2 variables to 7. And then we say that while both of these variables are still equal to 7, we're going to cout hello world. So we're going to see what this looks like if you end up doing something like this. What is this one called? And you're going to get something that looks like this. So basically, it's going to just keep looping and looping and looping and looping for eternity or until your computer dies. And this is bad. So we don't want to make infinite loops because they usually aren't very productive. And the way that we fix it is, as previously mentioned, we have to make sure that inside of our loop body, we have to make sure that one of these variables changed. So this is kind of an open-ended question. There's many solutions to this, but how could I make this no longer an infinite loop?
Change the number?
Yeah. So how do you think we should change the number? And which one do you want to change?
Doesn't really matter, does it?
Doesn't matter. Just whatever you want to do.
Valve 1.
Val 1.
Or var 1.
Var 1 is 1. I'll just add 1 to val 1 and I'll put it after this statement. So now if we were to save,
It's a VAR, it's not VAR.
oh, thank you. Thank you very much. Okay. So now we recompile and rerun. That definitely fixed our problem. So what happened is when we started off the loop, var1 and var2 were both equal to 7. So we entered it. Then we printed out hello world. And then we increased the value of var1 by 1. And then when we went up here and we looped again and we checked the condition, var1 was now 8. And that's no longer equal to var2. So we just exited the loop. Any questions on that? As always, you guys are welcome to interrupt me whenever you have any questions. Okay, so the next thing I have for you guys is we're going to do a little program activity here, and it's going to be using while loops. The idea with this program is you guys are going to help me make a program in which we predetermine a username and password. So these are going to just be variables where we just establish a username and password. Then what we're going to do is we're going to ask the user to enter their username and password. And then we're going to check, is the username that the user entered and the password equal to the one that we preset? And if so, we'll just welcome them to whatever site we decide. And if not, we're going to ask them again to re-enter their username and password because their previous one was false. And then they're going to enter it again. And if they still get it wrong, we're going to ask them again. And we're going to keep asking them over and over and over until they get it right. So I have an example program which goes over this. If I remember what it's called. Did I write it down? I did not. Give me 1 second to find out what it was called. Okay. So here is the example of what we're trying to achieve. Okay, so we enter a username and we enter password. And it's telling me that the username and password are incorrect. And notice how it played the prompts again. So it's going to ask me again. So I'll try again. And I'll enter password. It's still incorrect. And it's going to keep asking me until I finally get it correct. And when I get it correct, it's going to just say username and password accepted. So that's what we're going to try and do here. All right, so I'm going to open a new text editor window. I'll just write over an old one because I am being lazy. All right, cool. So we have a blank program here. And we're going to try and write this. What do you think the first thing I need to do is?
See how enter username? I don't know.
Perfect. Oh my gosh. Okay, now what?
Define username.
Perfect. So username is going to be what data type? Let's look at what I was entering here. It's a series of characters. Do you guys remember what data type that is?
I forgot.
It's all good. Don't worry about it. So a series of characters is what in C++ we call a string. So when we define, I could spell, when we define the variable that we're going to create, we tell the compiler that this is going to be a type string, meaning it's going to contain a sequence of characters. And we'll just give it a name. And now we're going to take input for that. So cin, and we'll take some input for that. So now we say enter your username. And then we'll also say enter your password. And then we'll also need to create a variable for password and take input for that. So password is also going to be a string. And then we're going to cin. All right, so now that we've written a significant amount of code, I am going to compile to make sure that everything is working correctly. And why did I put this on there? I put this on there while. Enter username. All right, so that's as far as we've written the program, and everything is working as expected so far. So we have allowed the user to enter a username and a password. What do you think we want to do next?
An if statement.
If. All right, and what do you think is going to be in that if statement?
Well, if the username doesn't equal to hello.
All right, let's see. Sure, we'll make our password, we'll make our username set to hello. So in this statement here, what we're saying is we're setting hello as the username that the user is going to have to eventually enter. So we say if username is not equal to hello, what do you want to do?
Incorrect username.
Okay. All right, so we wrote some code. We're going to run it. All right, so we got incorrect username. So that's fantastic. It worked as expected. The only thing here is in our previous example, we had it looping. It was going to ask again, enter your username and password, enter your username and password, enter your username and password until I eventually get it. All right, so James says do the same thing for password. So I'll go ahead and do that. And you guys can think about how we can make it loop in the meantime. So that looks like that should work. So when the user enters an incorrect username, they'll get this message. And when they enter an incorrect password, they'll get this message. And if they do both incorrect, they will get both messages. So when we go ahead and run this, it does perform as expected. We get the incorrect password output. But the only thing that we have left to do is we want to make it so it keeps looping until they eventually get it correct. So what do you think we could do to do that?
Would you make username equal to hello and password to hello? I mean,
Up here?
yeah.
We did a lowercase hello, that's different. And password equal to password exclamation point, and run it like that. So we're still getting the same output. And the reason being, in our program, it's still all running pretty sequentially. We're going from top to bottom, basically. We're gonna establish some variables, and then we're gonna do some input, and then we're gonna check if this is true. This is where we kind of have a little detour in our program. If it is, we're gonna print this. And then we're gonna check if this is true. If it is, we're gonna print this. And then all the way, we're gonna go right down to the bottom of the program. What we need to do is we don't have a loop. We don't have any mechanism for anything to repeat. Yeah, Samantha, you got it. We're going to need a while loop. So we need to figure out where we want to put that while loop and also what conditions that while loop is going to have. So why don't you guys tell me what line number do you think I should start the while loop on? So remember, in a while loop, we say while. Uh-oh. Where did my,
Line 8 or 13.
let's see. Yeah, line 8 sounds fantastic, because if we look at the previous example, it kept repeating, enter your username, enter your password, enter your username, enter your password over and over and over again. So we know that that is definitely going to be included in the loop. So we'll say while, and then we'll end up putting a condition here. While condition, we'll fix that. And then we're going to start it here. So where do we think we want to stop? Where do you think the code that we want to stop repeating is? Basically, where do we want the end curly brace?
Line 13.
Let's take a look. Line 13, let's try it. All right, so on line 13, we're gonna
No,
stop
actually,
repeating.
that's involve everything.
Wait, what was that?
It has to be everything, doesn't it?
Yeah, I think we want to go down here, right? Does that sound good?
Yeah.
Uh-oh, I just want to tab. Okay, apparently it's not going to let me indent it. I'll indent it later. Okay, so we have while some condition is going to be true. We're going to have them enter the username, enter the password. And then we're going to say, if username isn't equal to hello, we print that message. If username isn't equal to password, we print that message. What condition do you think that we want here? What is that going to be?
Well, username doesn't equal hello.
All right, let's give that a shot. While username does not equal, while username does not equal hello, we're going to repeat. Anything else we want to do? Is that good? Or sounds pretty good. And on the opposite side of the or, what else do you think we want to say? There we go. What else are we checking? Yeah, perfect. While password is not equal to password. I know I was really creative with the password, but it works. All right, so do you think we're ready to run? I think we could give it a shot. Let's give it a shot, and we can always come back and fix it. So we're going to recompile. Actually, I'm going to save before I try and do anything. Okay, apparently it's saved, I guess. Nope, nope, not there. Enter, no errors, so that's always a good sign. And we run the executable. Uh-oh, we didn't get any output. Well, we clearly have some cout statements here. But notice where they are. They are inside the while loop, which means that this while loop is never even running. So let's take a look at our condition here. We say while the username is not equal to hello. Okay, let's take a look at what username is. In our first assignment statement to username, username is equal to hello. So this is going to end up being false. And then we take a look at this part. Well, password is not equal to password. Well, if we take a look at our password variable, it's equal to password. So this is also going to be false. So this statement right here, this whole statement is going to result in false. And then since it's all false, the program is going to just jump down here and exit without ever printing anything. So how do you think we want to change this?
Equals.
Right here. All right, let's give that a run. Okay, so we got into the username area, so that's good, that's improvement. And I'll enter the correct username, I'll enter an incorrect password. So we have a correct username and password, we'll do some gibberish. Okay, incorrect password. That's good. Enter your username. And I'll enter the correct password. Uh-oh. Well, I entered the correct password and I also entered the correct username. What happens if I enter the incorrect one for both? So we can just do some texting here. Incorrect username, incorrect password, and we also ended the program. So we have a little logic error here. What do you think we could change to fix it? And if you don't know, don't worry, I can help you guys out. Else statement, where do you think we should put an else? Oh, don't worry. It's okay, it's okay. This is all pretty new stuff. So I'll help you guys out a little bit. So we know that we want this while loop to keep running over and over and over and over again, while the input that the user is entering is incorrect. So we want to have it how we previously did, where username was not equal to hello and or password was not equal to password. So that part was good. We want to keep that like that because we want to keep running while they aren't entering the correct stuff, basically. So this is good right here. The reason why it's not working when we had it like this is if we take a look at our variables that we created up here, hello is going to be equal to hello. So this is going to be false, and this is going to be false. Basically, the reason why this isn't working is we have predefined our variables to be the end result of what we want them to be. So when we had username equals to hello, this was resulting in false. And then password was equal to password, this was resulting in false. And we just skipped the entire while loop entirely. So if I just assign this anything else but those values that we had and saved it, we can actually assign it with nothing. We can just create those variables, assign it with nothing. And then when we first start the program, we go down the program, we create our variables, we look at our while loop, a username, which doesn't have any value, nothing's gonna be in there, just an empty string, is not gonna be equal to hello, so this is gonna be true. And then password, which has nothing in it, it's just an empty string, is not gonna be equal to the word password exclamation mark. So that's both gonna be true, which means that we are going to enter our while loop, we're gonna execute this stuff, we're gonna have our nice little messages right here. And then if they don't get it correct, it will still be, one of them will still be true. This is, hopefully that made some sense. Did that make sense why we couldn't establish them to be the final answer? Yes, all right, perfect, I'm glad. So we'll enter a username. I'm going to do one that's incorrect first. And I'll enter a correct password just to make sure that the logic here is working. Okay, incorrect username, perfect. That's helpful feedback. That's even better than my original program. So we'll enter a username and I'll get this one wrong and I'll get this one wrong. Incorrect username, incorrect password. Perfect, everything's functioning as expected. And lastly, we are going to enter the correct username and the correct password. And perfect, that looks fantastic. We exited the while loop as when we wanted to. Do you guys have any questions on this? Hopefully working through one of these was helpful. So we are out of time, but I do want to talk about really quickly what we're going to do tomorrow. Tomorrow, we are going to talk all about those for loops that I briefly mentioned earlier. James, this is where you have a loop where it's set in advance how many times it's going to run. So in the previous loop that we just wrote, the user could, this loop can run any number of times. We don't know in advance. The user on the very first try could enter the correct username and password. And, uh-oh, I spelled it wrong. If I did it correctly, and that loop ran 2 times. The previous loop ran 3 times. So a while loop is generally used when in advance we don't know how many times it's going to run. But we have another loop, which is in advance predetermined how many times we want it to run, and that is called a for loop. So tomorrow we're going to talk all about those guys and how to write them. I do want to ask you guys about writing codes with you. Would you rather have me write it like we're doing and you guys give me feedback on what to write? Or would you like to write it on your own? Or would you like to write it all together, like all on one text editor virtually?
Either one's helpful.
Either one? Okay. So tomorrow, maybe I'll give this a shot. There's a way using that replit that I previously mentioned. And if we turn the code intelligence off, I think we're fine to do this. Where, okay, you like what we're doing right now? Awesome. We can do that. This is something that we can try out in the future, though. I can send you guys a link to what I'm showing you right here, and you can all write like on this at the same time. That might be something to try a little bit later on. So for now, we'll just do this. I'll ask you guys what you think, and I'll help you out. So yeah, that's about all I have for you guys today. These slides will be available on Canvas as well as the recording, and I will see you guys tomorrow.